Hey yo, what's up beautiful people, Tony Slay here from Slay Pixels, and in today's video I'm going to show you guys how to get some really cool cinematic film looks in Davinci Resolve. So let's get into it.
Here we go.
I bet you guys have seen the looks that we're going to try and achieve in today's video. So in Resolve, I have a short clip here. This clip is from one of the short films that we did while I was still in film school. So I'll just play it for you guys to see how it looks like.
Dieses Projekt ist unsere Goldmine und wir sind die Goldgräber. Wenn wir in den nächsten Wochen konzentriert weiterarbeiten, wird dieses Projekt unser Leben verändern. Also ran an die Arbeit. Machen wir was draus. Ja.
So what we're going to do with this clip is we're going to move to the color tab. We're going to be using a plugin called Dehancer, which I'm sure you've already heard of. If you haven't, it's a plugin that allows you to emulate film, grain, halation, bloom, and other cool stuff. The video is not sponsored, so we're gonna go through everything together. I've never used the plugin before, so this is also my first time trying it out. If you wanna check out the plugin, you can click the link in the description below to get a 14-day trial and use the code SLAY10 for 10% off if you wanna buy it. The plugin works with Resolve, Premiere Pro, Final Cut, Photoshop, and I think they also have a mobile application, so you can check them out. Again, you can use the code SLAY10 for 10% off. You just come here and type Dehancer. We're gonna load Dehancer to this last node here, and you can see it changes the clip completely. We came from here to that. It changes immediately. You can come here, the input, and you select camera, or you can just select Rec 709 if your clip is in Rec 709. Here you can go, for example, this one was shot on Sony FS7, so I'll pick Sony. I don't have the FS7 here, so the closest that I can get to the FS7 image is the Alpha 7 III, so I'll take this. You can already see what it does to the image. We came from here and now we are here. You can see there's a lot of film grain. There's this section here that I don't like playing with. If you enable it, I don't know if you guys on YouTube can see this. There's some little changes that you can see. You can use this to control the exposure, for example, and the temperature and all this stuff. You can play with all these things, but I'm not gonna play with them right now just yet. I'll just enable it like that and leave it that way. Then I'll come to Film Developer. Over here, I'll enable this and then I'll try to play with the contrast. If that's too much, I think that looks good for me. And then I'll play with the gamma correction. Around there is not bad. I don't need color separation. I actually don't know what it does. Like, I don't see any much changes. You can see the waves here in the scopes moving, but I don't know what it does. I can't see much. It does very little. But the color boost is more like saturation or the vibrance. If you add it, you can see what it does. So I'll increase that just a little bit to get some color into the footage. So from there, this is where we're standing right now. And then I'll move here to film. There are a lot of presets here that you can play with and get different looks. I think I'm gonna go with this one, Kodak Ektachrome E100 2017. That looks good to me. You can use this to increase the intensity. It's up to you if you want to increase it or reduce it or leave it in the middle. I think I'll leave it there. That works well for me. Then I'll come here to film compression and I'll enable it. I don't know if you guys can see. Look at the scopes here. Look at the scopes. When I enable it and when I disable it, see? So what this does is it reduces the highlights, like it compresses the highlights so that we can recover a bit of the highlights. You know what I'm saying? You can play around with all this stuff, you know, play around with them and see what works for you. I'm not gonna play around with them anyway for this particular footage, so I'll just leave it like that. And then this is a very important point where you can play with the contrast of the image and you have total control, because this controls the highlights, and this controls the shadows, you see. So you can play around with them and see what works for you. For example, here I can, maybe I want to darken the highlights a little bit and open up the shadows a little bit because they were clipping here. So if I open them up a little bit, I think around there looks good. And then here, this is a very important point where you can now emulate the film print. So I'll have to enable it, and then you'll come here and pick what works for you. You can try this. I don't like it. Fujifilm, that looks kind of cool, but not it. Yeah, that one looks awesome. That one also looks good, but I feel it's like too much. So I think I'll go with this one. This one looks more like an old school film. Can also use this to compress everything, but I'm not gonna do it right now. Here you have your printer lights. I'm really not gonna use that because if I wanna do this, I'd rather use the ones in Resolve. And then here is where you control your grain. You can see, like right now I feel there's too much grain over here. So if I disable it, then you can see the footage is clean. It's clean. It's completely clean. Like no grain, no noise, no nothing. But if I enable it, then you can see. So I think that's too much for me. So I'll play around with it. Let me see, 65mm ISO 50. Yeah, I think that works way better for me. I love it. I love it that way. I wish there could be a way to control everything manually, but I love this preset. This one looks like what you'd see in the old movies, you know. And then there's halation here. If you enable it, look at the scopes. Like, I don't think you guys can see on YouTube. They're very subtle changes. So you just try it out and see if it works for you. But you can look at the scopes. If you can see it here, I don't know if you guys can see it. The highlights here, you can see some subtle changes. If I enable it, you can see some subtle changes, but I don't need it because the changes are too subtle for me to even see them. Then there's the bloom. For you to see the bloom, look here. Look at the changes. Look at the changes that happened there. It kind of makes it to shine a little bit. I don't think I'll need it in this particular footage. The vignette, I love the vignette here. You can see the difference. I love it. Like, it's so cool. I love it. A person cannot recognize it. Just the default presets, I think they're awesome. You can control it however you want, play with it, you know, do whatever you want here until you get what you really want to achieve with your look. This is a very important part. This is the false color. If you use this, then you can see the areas in your footage that are overexposed. For example, you can see this is bright and then this is dark. You see, like, our subjects are well exposed. It's just bright, but it's not clipping, as you can see in our scopes here. I'll disable it. Then here you can see what's clipping, for example. So far in our image, nothing is clipping. If there will be anything that will be clipping, we'd see some bluish stuff wherever our image is clipping. And then the output, this one is like the intensity of the whole effect. If I take it down, the effect is gone. If I take it all the way up, our effect is 100%. Yeah, that's how it works. And then you can export the entire thing as a preset or as a LUT that you can use in your future projects. I like how the image is looking, but I'll need to bring up my vector scope to see where the skin tones lie. And you can see our skin tones are not where they should be. Let me just use the qualifier. Yeah, you can see our skin tones are a bit more to the right, meaning there's a bit more magenta to it. I can clean it using the same plugin, but I prefer just using Resolve to do all the other dirty things, you know what I'm saying? And come here to the third node, to my third node, and first of all, I'll try and add more contrast to the image by taking down the gain and lifting the lift a bit, and then I'll add a bit more contrast to the image because I think there's still so much potential in this image to be pushed further. I think that looks a bit better. I'll come to my offset and I'll just try to put my skin tones on the line where they should be. That's too much. Around there, and you can see our skin tones are lying on the line where they should be. Yeah, and that looks good. Then I can come here and try to do some white balance a little bit so that the walls don't look so yellow. It wasn't so warm on this day. It was a January, so it has to look a bit more natural. I think that looks good to me. Of course, you can always go ahead and do some other things. You can use the curves maybe to add a bit more contrast and then add a bit more saturation to the image to push it further. But I'm happy with that look. We can see what we've done so far. I'll deactivate all the nodes. We came from here to here. Big difference. Let me play it in full screens for you guys to see. Okay, now we're gonna check another clip. Like this one was shot using the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, and this was part of a fashion film. If you watch my channel, I think you've watched that film somewhere. So I'll just play the short clip for you guys to see. I'll load the Dehancer plugin to the last node, and you can see it there. It completely changes everything, and that looks horrible. We choose the camera. This time it's the Blackmagic. Yeah, it will automatically take you to the 4K, which is fine, and it only has film format. I'll enable this. I don't know if I'll use it, but I'll just enable it. I'll come here and enable this, the film developer, and then I'll add some contrast to the image. Not too much, just a little bit. I think that looks good. And then gamma correct, I'll add it through a little bit, and then color boost. I think that looks good to me. Here again, I'll also take the Kodak Ektachrome, and you can see how it changes the image completely. And now we have something that looks way better. I'll enable film compression. You can see what it does to the highlights. Look here, look at the sky. When I enable it, you can see it's like you're recovering some detail from the sky. You can look at the scopes. I disable it, I enable it, you can see it's compressing the highlights a little bit. You can recover a little bit of the highlights. I'm not gonna do much there. I'll just enable it and leave it that way default. And then here, I like playing with the black point and the white point. It's more like contrast, like what you will do with the curves. I think that looks good because it's a fashion film and she wants to showcase her outfits, you know. So we want it to be a bit more bright so that people can see everything. And now to the print, I'll come here and I think I'll go with the Fuji. I think that looks good. I'll come here and enable the analog range limiter. Film grain. If I disable it, you can see what we have. That's how it looks without the grain. I'll also reduce the grain. 65mm ISO 50, that looks way better than that. I think that's just exaggerated too much. I think that looks way better. I'll enable halation here because you can clearly see what it does to her face. You see, it adds a little bit of warmth to it. I think that's awesome. I'll also add a bit of bloom. It makes her face pop, and then I'll ignore all this other stuff because I actually don't know what they do. I've tried using them. You guys can play around with them. I don't know what they do. Then of course I'll add vignette just so that we can focus on her. Again, I'll come here. I'll come to my second node this time, and I'll try to do the same thing. Reduce the highlights or the gain, and then raise the lift, not that much, and then I'm gonna crank up the contrast to about 200-ish there. Of course, I'm gonna pull up my scopes and see where is our skin tone, because that's what I like orienting myself around. Yeah, our skin tones are a bit bluish. It was also cold while we were filming this because we filmed this on Christmas Day in December. It was pretty cold, which makes it understandable for it to look like that, but we can still get a bit of warmth to it, but I'll get back to that. I'm gonna come to the curves. If you're wondering how I'm doing this with the curves, I came here and you have to enable the editable splines for you to be able to do it like this. I'll take down the shadows, and now you can see the shadows are clipping here, but don't worry, we're gonna fix that. I'll raise the highlights and then I'm gonna raise this up, not that much, just a little bit like that, and give it a bit more contrast. Then I'll come to my first node here. I'm gonna raise the temperature just a little bit so that we can make her look like a human being and not like a zombie, because she was too blue, which is like more of a zombie look. That looks way better. We came from here and now we are here. That looks way better. I think I'll add some saturation to the image. I'll come to the third node and just add a bit of saturation up to about 60-ish maybe. I think that looks good. Like, that looks really good. You can see our skin tones are perfect. Everything looks good. You know, nothing is exaggerated. The grain is okay. Everything looks fine. We haven't lost our skies. Our blacks are still there. I think I love it. So let me play it so that you guys can see the before and after. And now with this other clip, we're gonna do the same thing. Load Dehancer there, choose the camera, enable that, increase the contrast, gamma correct a little bit, get it right, enable color boost, don't exaggerate it. I'll still use the same preset, which was the Kodak Ektachrome. It looks good. I'm gonna go down to film compression because the highlights are completely gone. I'll bring them back. Look at the scopes. Look at the scopes when I enable it. Look without it. Look with it. I'm gonna come here at the expand, increase the black point. I want to exaggerate it, increase the white point maybe. Take it down a little bit. There's no correct and wrong way. It only depends on what you want to achieve with the footage. And then I'll come to the print and I'll take the Kodak print film. You can see what it does to the image. This is the before and this is the after. We've already made a huge difference to the image. The film grain, I think it's too much. I'll take it down to that one. Looks more natural to me. Halation, you can just play around with it and see what does it do. I think that's awesome. It adds a bit of warmth to the sky. It was a warm day as we were filming this. You can tell with the way she's dressing. I'll enable it and just leave it like that. I don't want to do much to it. The bloom, you can look at her face. It makes her face a bit brighter. So I'll enable it and then I'll add vignette again. I'll come here again, take down the gain, increase the lift, crank up the contrast, exaggerate it a little bit, come here, play with the curves a little bit, open up the image completely. The image has a lot of potential, so we can really open it up because we are not clipping anyway. I'll check my skin tones. You can see the skin tones are not on the line. You can use the qualifier also to check where our skin tones are lying. And you can see, for example, there, that's more on the yellowish side. We need to fix that. So first of all, I'll come here and try to fix the white balance a little bit, reduce the yellow from the footage just a little bit. I think that looks good. Well, so to fix these skin tones, first of all, I'm gonna come here and play with the offset a little bit. Go towards magenta just a little bit, not that much. Yeah, that looks right. You can see now where our skin tones are lying. I still think the image has a lot more potential, so I'll come here to my curves and I'll just add saturation to 60-ish, 62, around there. I think that looks good. At the end of the day, we have a look like that. With 4 nodes, we've moved from this to that. That's incredible. That's crazy. That's awesome. I love it. And now this is how it looks like in full screen. And now to the final image that I'm gonna show you guys. It's this one. You can see this was shot in an all-white room, and these are LED lights. I don't know if you guys can see. I'll add Dehancer again. Camera is the Blackmagic as usual, and then I'll enable the French. I'll enable this, the film developer, crank up the contrast a little bit, fix the gamma, take it down, increase the color boost. You can already see the before and after. It's already looking way better. Here, I'm not gonna take the Kodak, but I'm gonna take the Cinestill 50D because it gives me pure whites, and I love it. I love when the white remains white. I'll leave it like that. Of course, I'll add film compression because there are LED lights here on the bed. Just watch this part of the video. When I enable and when I disable, it compresses the highlights there, and I love that. So I'll leave it like that. I'll come here to expand and make the darker areas a bit darker, and then reduce the highlights a little bit, not that much, that's exaggerated, a bit around there. I think that looks good. Then here I'm gonna go with the Kodak Enduro glossy paper, and you can see that one brings a different vibe to the image. I don't think this clip needs film grain, so I'll get rid of the film grain and I'll just let that image look clean as it is. So halation, I'll play around with it, and then the bloom, of course I'm gonna add some vignettes to it. That already looks good. We came from here and now we are here. That already looks good. That's something that you can already put out. The clip has a lot of potential. You can see there's so much that can be pushed here, but I'm not gonna push it too much because I want the whites to remain white. I don't want too much contrast to the image. I want it to remain light, just like it is. I'll come to the second node. As usual, take down the gain, raise the lift, crank up the contrast to around 200-ish. Then come here, play with the curves, do the classic S curve to bring a bit more contrast to the image. That looks fantastic. Look at that, the before and after. And then just with the Dehancer without these two nodes, you can see we just came from that to that. That looks good to me. I don't know about you guys, but that looks good to me. Cause I'm gonna come here and try to do a white balance further, take it more to the bluish side. And now, yeah, I think the whites are now looking like really white. I think they're looking clean, and I love it that way. I'll still come back here and I need to check if my skin tones are right. Yeah, they are right, but they're a bit more to the bluish side, and I've got to fix that. So I'll come to the offset here and try to add a bit more orange, just a little bit, not too much, just like that. And now our skin tones are right. They're sitting at the right place where they should be. That's a beautiful flat look that I wanted for this image, and it looks just perfect. What I can do is maybe add a bit of saturation so that to make her pop out more, her lipstick and everything. Take it to 62-ish, maybe that's too much, around there. Yeah, and now you can see her skin tones are pronounced and they're sitting at the right place where they should be. And here's the before and after. Yeah, so guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something from it. If you got value from it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to try out using Dehancer, go check out the link in the description. It works with Premiere Pro, Final Cut, Davinci Resolve. Is there any other? But I know it works with the tree. You can check out their website if it works with other softwares. If you want to get 10% off your purchase, you can use the code SLAY10 and get 10% off. Otherwise, that's it from me. I hope you really had fun like I did working on this video. You can check out this other video here where I show you guys how I get some really cool cinematic footage using the overexposure method. That's just something I invented, overexposure method. It doesn't exist, but you can check it out. It's an interesting video. Otherwise, thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Blessings.